I've admired you as a patient. I now admire you as a friend and mentor. You've done massive work this year. Tell us what you've been doing.
Yeah, I think we've done okay. Yeah, I think it's been a decent year. I tell you what, though.
I'd say so.
But listen, Terry, thanks so much for putting this together, and it's really humbling. It's when you consider how things started off, how relationships start off, and you mentioned trust before, and here I am. I'm looking at the screen, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't see something from one of you guys, online, social media, all your successes, all your efforts, the passion. And I'm honored to be sharing this stage with you all. Honestly, you guys are immense to me. So, Gareth, the highlight of our year was really the person who was responsible for it is on this call, Gareth, because I wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have been, and Tolman wouldn't have been in Katowice, Poland, were it not for the World Health Innovation Summit, and Gareth in particular, obviously. And what an event that was, on a professional level and a personal level. As Gareth mentioned, we got to meet for the first time in person. It was also a very special personal trip for me because my chief tech officer was with me. And I hope he won't mind me saying this. More importantly, my eldest daughter was with me, which was an absolutely incredible experience, having her part of that forum and those conversations, and growth comes in many ways, right? And in terms of personal growth, one of the immense personal things that came out of that was experiencing my kid grow personally because of this experience, right? So it's irrespective of how our, advocacy efforts, entrepreneurial efforts, all the rest of it, irrespective of how those things develop, it's memories like that you'll never ever forget, right? So it was just huge. The conversations that came out of that from an advocacy standpoint from that meeting, WURF 11, World Urban Forum 11, was just really exciting and humbling at the same time. What Tolman is doing, how we started off as essentially a simple shared decision-making aid for patients to give patients a voice. And how it's grown and now we're stateside, here in the US, we're talking to societies to collaborate with the ASPS, the Plastic Surgery Society, the ASBRS, the Breast Surgeon Society, ASCO, American Society for Clinical Oncology, health systems, industry, all these collaborations. And now, thanks to WURF, we're talking global, and we're talking countries.
Yeah.
So, for us, the development, it's on a daily basis, in-house, it's, the tech side of things and bringing artificial intelligence more into the app, machine learning, improving user experience, patient navigation, but also now we have an aspect of the team really, and this came about after WURF. Now we have the ability to deal with different regulatory and compliance issues, right? Because when you're trying to expand to different continents and countries, and you have all these countries seeking the positive change from a health standpoint, a digital health standpoint for the population, and you're trying to create networks, as a company, we now have to be in a position during the discovery phase to actually help them realize what it is that they need. Because, we're making forays here that are completely new and unique. So very, very exciting. And it's just lovely and humbling to share all this with you guys, and considering our lives and our goals and our challenges are so intertwined, it's really, it's great to be here with you all today.
Yeah, it really is. You talk about your work with WURF, and every day you're behind your surgical loops too, changing lives for people that have been affected by breast cancer. So you didn't even touch on that, but I'm going to as one of your patients, knowing how much that means to so many people, not just the patient, the caregiver, families, and let's face it, working women and men who want to get back to their lives after they've been affected by breast cancer. It's so all-encompassing, Dr. C, and so acknowledging your work here.
Thanks for that.
On a personal and professional level as well. Yeah. It's difficult to wrap this up. There's no wrapping this up. There's no wrapping this up with the three of you. I just truly believe that all of you today are going to continue to push the envelope because you were all born to be change makers. I'm proud to know each of you and call you my friends. To all of our listeners in 2022, thank you. I'd be grateful if you share these podcasts in your community for those you know need this information. I have always said that a podcast is only as good as its guest. So I'm grateful to each of you for spending time with me today, and I look forward to having you back as guests next year in 2023. Is there anything any of you would like to say as we wrap up the podcast today?
I'll just say thanks, Terry. Thanks for bringing this together, this forum, having this opportunity to work with Sussanne and Minas, and look forward to building momentum for 2023. You know, we've got a big job ahead. I think Sussanne mentioned it, and, you know, in her, when she was making her points about leadership, I think like we really do need to push the envelope in terms of unearthing the next leaders. I'm a firm believer that leaders create leaders. And we really need to find the next generation, and we really need to look at how do we bring these fantastic solutions, like, you know, Sussanne gave the example, and Minas, you know, they have the technologies. And how do we unearth and bring the investment? I mean, I think the challenge for us all here is how do we collectively bring our work together so we're more focused, maybe, you know, so that we actually, you know, we really need to make that connection into the banking sector. I know from my perspective, we're working hard to kind of establish relationships with established banks and investors. And I think that's where healthcare needs to go. And we need to understand the value propositions, and we need more engagement in communities, and we need to build more communities. We need more knowledge. We need more wisdom. So that's a real challenge for us for 2023. Hopefully when we come back on the podcast next year, we can actually say, yeah, this is what we've done. I'm sure, you know, Minas and Sussanne, from this conversation, yourself, Terry, we really do have to push the envelope on this, because if you look at the climate situation, and we can't sit back either. Like, I don't think we can say, oh, someone else will do it. I think we really need to take the responsibility, because as Minas mentioned about, you know, our kids, shall we say, and like I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old, and, you know, what are we leaving for them, you know, in the future? And, you know, I don't think there's any time to waste. I really do think, and if you listen to all the commentators as well, you know, there's loads of finance there, but okay, where is it? Like, we really need to turn that key, you know, so yeah. I'm hopeful for 2023.
Well, I'm going to hold you to coming back in 2023, Gareth. Sussanne, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're living in a very difficult world, and there's no point back. There's no point of not acting. What I see, I'm not so old myself. Gareth, I challenge you more in this kind of leadership in the world, because, of course, in many places, longer want this. So I'm also very looking forward how we further this field into all the corporations and in the society at large, because, and that's like the words of Jan Rotmans about chaos. You say in a time of great uncertainty, it's movement that's a great facilitator. So that's my point, what I made about movement. But sometimes it can look very dark. I know from everyone who will have these feelings sometimes, where what are we actually doing for? Is this actually making an impact? This is so small. How are we ever going to get this to more places? But then especially that, knowing that there are many people taking a small step, and as long as we keep building and finding the people who do that, then collectively we are turning the wheel. And that gives me a lot of power. And that's also for the end of the year what I would like to give everyone listening.
Great. And Dr. C, final thoughts as we wrap it up.
Final thoughts. Well, I think, you know, the only constant we have is change. And I think as change agents, we just have to just keep focusing on incremental change, because we can't forget that lots of incremental change adds up to a hell of a lot. And so I think it's very hard sometimes not to get a bit disappointed, distraught, you know, the lack of speed of progress. But I think as long as we keep going